Welcome to the Octopod. I'm Kyle Davis, head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in. So this time we're going to delve into our topic of Beyond 2024, cybersecurity decoded. And today I'm joined by Rich and Harps from Rubrik. Guys, would you like to introduce yourself for everyone?
Hi, so my name's Harpinder, or Harps for short. I'm the lead channel SE for Rubrik in the UK.
Hello, I'm Richard Cassidy. I'm field CISO for EMEA for Rubrik.
Excellent, thank guys. So today we're going to break this session into three parts. The first of them talking about the evolution of threats and how we're seeing the change of attackers in today's world. The second part, we're going to delve into some of the data out of the Rubrik Zero Labs report and what that tells us about them threats. And then thirdly, we're going to focus on how can we evolve the way we protect our organizations to counter the changing actors out there. So let's get into it. So welcome back everyone to part three. In this part, we're going to talk about the impact of generative AI on the cyber market, and then also give you our top 5 tips on what to do to practically change all of this stuff that we've been talking about in the previous 2 episodes. So, Rich, I mean, this is a favourite topic of yours, I think, to talk about. So, where are we and what impact has Gen AI had on this cyberspace over the last, 12, 18 months, I guess?
So, Gen AI as a subject is vast, and we could spend possibly hundreds of podcast hours just talking about it. I think it's important for the industry to understand the trajectory that AI is on, and not just Gen AI, but AI as a whole. We're in narrowband AI at the moment, so that's the machine learning backed Gen AI tools you see today, like ChatGPT and the ones created by other organizations. There's so many out there to name, but we'll use GPT because everybody knows about it. And, that's using all sorts of different functions to get smarter and better. And it's starting to show a huge growth rate. I mean, Gen AI capabilities are 5 billion times smarter in the last decade than they were 10 years ago. And we're seeing that doubling at a rate of every 3 to 4 months now. So, that shows you where we're going. And where we're going is to AGI, artificial general intelligence. And this is the ability for AI now to essentially think in a similar way to humans. Now, there's a lot of arguments around can it think as creatively as the best humans. Recent studies have shown that current AI doesn't perform as well, which is good news for humanity. But I don't believe there's a future where it doesn't become as good as humanity in creating new abstract ideas. And then beyond AGI, you get to this super artificial intelligence capability, and who knows what that looks like. I hope we don't see it in our lifetimes, but let's see where it goes. And so what we've seen in the last 18 months is businesses starting to understand, and the adversaries, by the way. This is really important to know that the attackers are using it just as much as the businesses are today to allow humans to do things much more quickly and much more effectively. So, for example, we know that ChatGPT has a verbal IQ of 155 today. And by some estimations, that's going to be 1,000 times smarter in the next 3 years. We've already seen generative AI as it stands today now outsmarting humans at coding, for example, at writing and language and all these sorts of things that takes us a lot of time to do. So what Gen AI is allowing us to do is just hyper-enable us to do things much quicker, to think of concepts much more fast, in a much more fast way, and effectively code and do things smarter. So that's great. So as a business, you've got to then say, well, if this tool set's out there, I should be using it then to enable my company to do things smarter, and you should. Please don't think for a moment that Gen AI is there to replace existing workforces. It isn't.
No.
It is enabling workforces to be smarter, and there are some functions of jobs that don't need to be done anymore because Gen AI can help you do that, but it doesn't make the staff members in those areas defunct in any way. And one of the areas that Gen AI is hit hardest is in the area of marketing, for example, where we're creating content and articles and stuff. So, human brains for human problems. I would say to businesses, be warned, don't think AI is the way out. And the main reason is we don't know where it's going. We really don't have a lot of legislation around Gen AI at the moment. And so we don't know what the governments are going to be putting as enforcements of businesses. It may be that if you jump into the Gen AI boat in its entirety, and most of your business's processes run off the back of Gen AI, you might have to strip those back significantly if legislation tells you to. And the likelihood is that it will. So that's where we've been in the last 18 months. And that's some of the stark warnings to businesses today in the adoption of Gen AI as it stands.
Do you think that we'll get that legislation within a time frame that it can actually be useful? Because I was talking to someone the other week about this, and we'd look back at like the smoking industry and cigarettes, and when they first came out, they were fine. It was the next best thing. And the automotive industry didn't used to have seatbelts and safety equipment because we didn't understand and we couldn't visualize the escalation of that trend to the point where it would have an impact on humanity. Yeah, so we had to bring in legislations to stop smoking. We had to bring in legislations to put seatbelts into cars, etc., because it exploded and we ended up with a very different outcome. Then I bet you the person that invented the first car would be shocked if they saw the roads today and the impact that the cars had on the world, effectively. And do we really understand what AI is actually going to do in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time? And are governments capable of legislating for that today?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And this is the first time we've seen in history governments run to create legislation ahead of the problem. Normally, it's, to your point, very reactive. We've created something, oh dear, there's a problem, we need to control it. With AGI, for example, there's a lot of concern, and Davos, at the summit recently in Davos in Switzerland, there was a big discussion around AI and what AI control and legislation should look like across countries, because people are worried about what AGI will do. And to your question, well, we can create legislation today for what AI is today, but I've already talked about the growth trajectory we're on.
Yeah.
We won't know what that looks like next year, maybe not even in 6 months. So I don't think legislation is going to be able to keep up in the current way that we do it. There's going to need to be a different approach. Now, I don't know what that is, unfortunately, and if I did, I'd probably be sitting on the chair of governments, consulting on it. And I don't think business owners do. So we just have to work within the confines of what we know today. Legislation will just be playing catch up. And that's just inevitable based upon the fact that Gen AI and AGI, when it becomes AGI, will be what it will be. It will just be growing at a rate we can't control.
And how does all of this sort of then revolve back around to our cyber threat piece? I mean, we talked about that ability to just ask AI to do something for us. I mean, the threat actors are using this. Used to be, we talked about just before, you've got to be, even the script monkeys out there had to have a level of coding requirement and knowledge to do stuff now, whereas actually I think anyone could probably go and, ask AI to formulate an attack. That's could have changed the paradigm a little bit for the people that are actually trying to defend against it.
Yeah, and this is where I've seen, and more than a couple of years ago, back as early as sort of 2016, where the notion of the early sort of narrowband AI tools that we're seeing today be much more complex with ChatGPT-4, for example, were becoming very useful. It was in that SOC, for example, Security Operations Centers, other business units were able to use, and are today, AI to ask questions and get a wider context of the problem they're dealing with without having to go and do the research themselves. Now, that does beg the question, trusting the data, because AI is trained on data that exists in various public sources, and, not all data in public sources is factual, so we have to be careful about what we're using it for. But certainly the black and white questions, right? I have a piece of code that I don't understand. Can you tell me what the code is doing, and can you put it in simple English for me, right? As an analyst, that's going to be the kind of tools, the way you can use AI. In big data, you can say to AI, look, here's a data silo. I need to know what are the critical data points based upon these factors, be it sensitive data types, be it whatever. And AI will go and do that very quickly, and much quicker than you can write scripts to do it for. So it should be there to enable you to do those things faster. And that's where we're seeing it being used more effectively in security and data operations, at least in my experience.
No, it makes sense. And I guess that probably leads us then into our sort of top 5 tips conversation. And actually, not in any order of importance here, but one of them tips we talked about was actually the use of AI as an augmentation to the security operations teams, etc. So I think that is, is that about finding the right tools, finding the right processes to bring AI into that practice? I mean, Harps, have you seen customers
I think
adopting this?
It's something that needs to be adopted because, as Rich was talking about, the bad actors are using Gen AI to get in. And if we don't use Gen AI to protect ourselves, then we'll essentially have a knife to a gunfight. So we have to, as customers or as vendors, need to be adopting AI in a manner that can help speed remediation, for example. So, for example, at the moment, within the Rubrik Security Cloud platform, we've released a chatbot kind of thing, approach called Rubrik Gen AI, and that's there to do the same task that a human would do, but just speed it up by just some prompts. So, for example, if we see a known malware strain come in for the first time, then the chatbot will say, hang on, I've just seen this known IOC coming into the platform. Do you want me to quarantine it for you? And you can just say yes.
Yeah. So it's that augmentation as well, to your point, Rich, around the data this is trained on and that confidence in AI and the risk of hallucinations, etc. I don't think we're ready to turn over the keys and control, but actually that ability to augment humans and allow us to make better informed decisions.
Yeah, I mean, for business decision makers listening to this podcast, the industry's validating that Gen AI is a useful tool. Microsoft have now adopted ChatGPT 4 Turbo as part of their Copilot capability. It's just a recent announcement. And that's going to evolve and they're going to be improving that. And other vendors have already implemented AI and large language model capabilities. And we're moving into this large action model notion now, where AI is going to be able to mimic the actions of you or whoever's using the tool in the way that you work. So it becomes more specific to analysts in their working way, which is great because it means we're going to get AI now that help enable businesses that are specific to how people work and think. So there's that level of personalization. So the industry is validating we should use it. It's there. It's a tool at your fingertips. And you need to use it really to get one step ahead of the adversaries, in my opinion, because what I'm seeing the adversaries do with Gen AI is nothing short of worrying.
Yeah, no, 100%. Cool. Okay, so that's tip number one, is use AI to augment your capabilities. Tip number two then, Harps, this is one that's close to your heart, is this concept of posture management and actually understanding your data in the right level of detail.
Yep. So data security posture management is all around making sure you know everything about your data, where it is, especially now with hybrid cloud platforms. You've got data not only on premises, but in various different clouds and also SaaS applications. So it's very important to know exactly what data is where and what data is sensitive, for example. And, go through a process of hygiene, for example, going through having a look at what data has not been accessed for a number of years and just delete it.
I was going to say, never delete data.
Yeah.
Come on.
No,
you're really forward thinking now. I mean,
delete data.
Delete data.
We're seeing, for example, especially with the utilization of cloud, is that for a temporary period of time, you might spin up test dev environments in a cloud platform and it might have sensitive data in there. But what are the chances of it always being cleaned up? But first of all, the question I would ask organizations is, do you know if there is any of this at the moment?
Yeah.
And the answer would be, I don't know, because I don't know where all my data is.
Yeah. So it really lands into that sort of data observability space, which will probably be something that's on the thought track of whoever's running your AI programs, because they'll need that data to build their new models or fine-tune their models. But actually the security team and the ops teams are going to need to know where that data is as well to ensure that it gets secured. And when it is picked up and moved somewhere for some other project, you know that it's gone there and actually you can wrap the relevant protections around it. So, no, that makes sense from that side of it. And I think the next two tips kind of link together, but really we talked a little bit about this in the previous episodes, but this concept of resilience. And I think this need to really focus on them core operational processes that really got nothing to do with security per se, but, patching, code development, release management, all of this sort of stuff is absolutely key to ensuring that you don't get breached in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the most infuriating topics of discussion I have with business leaders is they go, yes, we have resiliency. And then you strip back the layers, right? In the typical interview style of Elon Musk, who likes to start at the top and go to all the levels until either he breaks you, you break him. So, well, what does resilience mean to you? And very often, Harps, you'll have heard the same thing. I can recover that server. I can spin that VM back up. I can recover that particular application in isolation. Typically, is what we see, right? Recovery isn't resilience. We've got to disconnect the two, right? Resilience is now well defined, right, by the regulators and by the industry. It's a minimum viable business operation capability in the face of a disaster. And so that means you've got to ask your questions, right? What are you protecting? Where does it sit? and you need to understand what a minimum viable business looks like. And then can you, to your point earlier, break your business? What does breaking your business look like? Can I break it and then recover from it? That's resilience. And if you're not looking at it that way, you're not asking those questions of your IT infrastructure teams, your IT ops teams, your SecOps teams, then you are running a strategy that I call hope, and it's not a strategy, and you don't have, hand on heart, a position of resilience to the board or to your consumers.
No, 100%. And I think that sort of leads into the fourth tip, which is that taking a holistic approach. We see so many security strategies, and I use the air quotes there, that are run by the security team only and have no influence or integration with the rest of the business processes. What are finance doing? What are HR doing? All these sorts of pieces. I bet you if we looked into the police breach in Northern Ireland, that I bet you it was nothing to do with security, because it was a Freedom of Information Act. There's a process failure there that's got nothing to do with security tooling, but it caused a breach. So I think that holistic approach across the entire business is a really core requirement for people to start thinking about. And it's not, whose responsibility? Everybody's. Best thing I ever saw is I walked into our our network operations center for a tour last year, and the first thing you get presented with is a mirror, and at the top of it says, "This is who's responsible for safety." And you look into a mirror for yourself, and I think that's and it remind everyone as they walk through the door at the start of every day that they are responsible. And I think that's a great approach to take across the board, really, from that side of things. So, and that leads us to our basics, really. Our number one tip, I guess, in this way around is, why are the basics not being done right? Why are we still talking about a lack of MFA or RDP open to the internet or SQL injection attack or whatever it happens to? I mean, really, it's frightening. But I guess closing thoughts, guys, on why and how do we address these basics to make a fundamental difference?
So, yeah, MFA is a big one. I don't know why it's still optional. Why would you have it as optional? There is a big thing now of security fatigue. We often talk about people can't be bothered to get a phone out and put a code in, and so they just switch it off. And so, we enforce it as mandatory. I think everyone should be enforcing it as mandatory, because it's just the basics. For your credit card, or your debit card, if you're trying to make a transaction online, you use your phone. The reason why that's there at the MFA is to protect you from a security standpoint. So, that is fundamental basic, making sure that your passwords are, strong enough and not just, generic passwords.
That makes sense. And Rich, what would your closing thoughts be for everyone at the end of this 3-part series?
Yeah, I mean, the basics, what are they to organizations? Well, they've always been your ability to patch your vulnerabilities, guys and girls listening to the podcast, get hyper capable at that. And the industry's trying to help you out, and there's new startups coming out trying to make it more automated. So let's do that. And then look, I kind of bring it back to 3 basic questions within that kind of basics, right? And we talked about some of them, right? Is as a business, understand what you're protecting, where that data sits, and then who you're protecting it from. And at a basic level, you understand that, then you can apply technology and process to the outcomes that are going to save your day should the worst happen. And we say should. I think we all agree it will inevitably happen based upon the metrics we've seen in the last year alone, let alone the last 10 years. So yeah, think about those 3 things. And to Harp's point, let's think about right authentication levels, MFA, things that are going to make your life, the attacker's life harder, because they don't like challenges. At least the cyber criminals don't. If you become a hard target, they tend to move on. But the APT groups, just for the listeners, they don't care how hard you are. If they want you, they'll come after you. So just be aware.
No, that makes sense. I think 2 takeaways in the middle of that is, if you're the house on the street with all the protection and your neighbour doesn't have it, then they're gonna rob your neighbour. So
right.
Do what you can.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely number 1 thought there. And number 2 is that regardless of where you start in this journey, you're gonna have to do this stuff. Yeah. So whether you go for I've been breached, I'm now going to try and survive that breach, then I'm going to understand my business, and then I'm going to put the technologies and processes in place to withstand. Or why didn't I start with understanding my business, put the processes and policies in place to withstand, and try and avoid more breaches? You're going to have to put the same effort in, either do it up front or do it in the middle of a breach. I know which way around I'd rather do it, but you're going to have to do it one way or the other. So get on with it. It's let's stop trying to find the nirvana, which I think a lot of places can do. So we'll spend forever procrastinating about the nirvana and not get on with doing the basics. So, guys, thank you for your time. It's been a great conversation, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, everyone. I've been Rob Sims, Chief Technologist from CDW.
I've been Harpinder Singh Powar, Lead Channel SE for Rubrik in the UK.
I've been Richie Cassidy, Field CISO for EMEA at Rubrik.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure to check out the back catalogue for more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.